Right. So welcome to this video, and in this video we are going to attempt to deploy a React application to Firebase hosting, and also deploy a JSON server backend to persist the data for this application. And then finally, we are going to add authentication so that we can protect the data that is going to be added by any user. So to start us off, because we will be working with Firebase, we need to be able to have a Firebase account. So I will go ahead and share my screen. So head over to firebase.google.com, and as a new user, you will get 300 USD to unlock all Firebase features. So initially you will be given $300 for free to spend inside of Firebase, and so that is an advantage if you are starting off. Also, you need to know that the pricing for Firebase is usually includes a free tier, so you can also maximize on the free tier. So you can always look at the pricing, and you'll find out that like authentication, which you're going to use later, it has like it gives us a package for no cost, which is the Spark plan. So we are going to utilize this. So it gives us quite some resources that we can leverage on for free. So you can see here, no cost up to 50k MAUs. So, and many other features that are being given for free up to a certain limit. So if you pass that threshold, it means that you need to start paying. So, and so I don't want to delay on that. So first of all, let's just jump into our target here is to deploy the application. So let's first start by creating an account. So we'll click on get started. You might be required to log in with your Gmail account, or whatever account that you might be using. So the account that I'll be using is that one, and I'll be doing that from Kenya. So I'm going to agree to it and continue. Of course, now you have to go through this setup process. So we can start by saying pay information verification. Don't worry, this trial is still free. Collect your payment information helps us. So you might be required to add some payment information, but for us, we're going to start for free. See if we can get an option to start for free. We are going to start as an individual, not an organization, so I'll use that, and I'll use other information here that is optional, so I will save that information. And of course, now the contact information, tax, all this is optional. Payment method, other payment method, we don't want to do that now. Let me see what is under payment. No, I don't want to add a payment method for now. So let's see if I can be able to start free. I still need to add payment information. So for this part, I will skip, mainly because I do not want to add payment information for now. So I will just basically use an account that has some payment information. So I will switch to an account that has some payment information already set up. So I don't want to create another account. So I'll switch to an account that has payment information. So I'll change the URL to console.firebase.google.com. So basically for you, if you don't already have an account, you need to be able to create one. And after you create one, you'll have an option to create a new Firebase project. So for me, I don't want to do that because I already have several projects here. Some of them I don't use, some of them I use. So, and I have some that have payment already activated, so I'll pick this one. But for your case, you'll need to create one. Okay, so because I already have this, I've created a project. So for your case, you're going to create an account. You might be required to enter some payment information, and you are not going to be charged straightforward. They will just have your credit card information. In case they need to for future references, if you want to start if your application is going to be used in production. But earning the payment information does not mean that you will be charged upfront. So once you've done that, you create an account, you're going to be given $300. Then once you have access to Firebase, you can create a project. So once you create the project, now you're good to go, right? So I'll be using this particular project. So that is it about creating a Firebase account. The unfortunate thing is you will need a payment method before you create an account. So that could be a disadvantage. It is also an advantage at some point. Okay. So the next thing that you need to do, because we had already created an app, so I'm gonna access my terminal and open the application that we need to deploy. So I'll go to cd document and I will access demos. Then I'll go to React, and then I will code hotlist. So the application that we are deploying here is like a to-do. It's actually a to-do list app, but I am calling it the tada or the hotlist. So this application, I'll just run it first. I will first of all just run it. So that we can see what we are deploying. So I'll do pnpm. I'm using pnpm for this, but you can use npm, it's still okay. Install or run dev. So it's a to-do list application. It has to-dos that are attached to a project, and it utilizes the json-server backend. So I would probably need to run json-server. So I'll run json-server watch my hotlist db. So that is my backend. Again, we are going to see how we can deploy this backend as well later on. So I will change something here that I had configured earlier. So I just want this to point to the JSON server backend, just for the demo, what we want to deploy. So I need to do Control-Shift-C. Control-Shift-C. and then we add it here, right? So yeah, so just leave it like that. That is our backend for now. So let's visualize what our application will be looking like. So yeah, so it has some projects, so it's not complete because I'm not able to add a project, but the part that is now working is just we can be able to delete task. So we are able to delete the tasks and we are able to add new tasks. So this is what we are going to deploy for now before I start improving it, because I might be tempted to start adding more stuff to it. All right, so that being that, now let's see how we need to deploy this. So to start deployment, I will first of all commit the changes that I have made. Git add all the changes, git commit crud ops completed. And then now because I've committed that, so let's start the process of deploying. So the first thing that we need to do is, for your case, you need to install some tools, some Firebase tools. So the Firebase tool that you need here, and you need to install this globally. So you can do npm install -g Firebase tools. So I'll just run this because probably I need to do some updates. So this is one of the tools, the Firebase tools that you need to use for deployment, and they need to be installed globally, meaning you can be able to work with this tool from any project, not from a specific project, but any project that you want to deploy to Firebase, you will be using this tool. So let's give it a second for it to download and install. So for my case, I'm just updating it because I already have it. So when that is happening, as you can see here, there are several things that we need to do. First one is deploying the React application to Firebase Hosting. So that is why we need the tools, Firebase tools, and then later we will try to we will also deploy the json-server to persist the data. So there's a challenge with json-server, but we'll see how we can get a workaround. So it works very well locally, but it doesn't work very well deployed because it utilizes files, right? As you can see, how I started this, how I started the JSON server here, I specified that we are watching a particular file, right? So that means that all the data that it contains is not stored in a database, but rather it is stored in a file called my JSON, which is just basically a JSON file that has a couple of or maybe the resources, the tasks, users, blah blah blah, everything there, right? So because it utilizes a file, it becomes a bit of a challenge to work with it, but we'll see how we can have a workaround on that. So my tool here has been updated. So if for your case, probably your tool have already been installed. So once you have the tools, you can now initialize. So you can do Firebase init. Make sure that when you're initializing this, you're initializing this from the root of your project. So right now, I'm at the root of my project. So I'll initialize that. And then it's going to take me through some steps. So basically, it will ask me what I need, what features do I need or do I want. So one of the features that I want here is the Firebase functions, because this is where we are going to deploy JSON server backend. And we also need hosting because our React application is going to be hosted. The other things that I want to use here are basically the emulator, because I would want to test this locally first before I deploy. So I need to set up emulators. So that is it. Oh yeah, so we also need to have authentication, because you're going to include, based on our plan here, we'll also add Firebase authentication to protect the data. So we also need authentication, and basically that is it in terms of the features that we need. And then we are going to be asked which account we want to use. So I will be using this account. Use an existing project, yes. So because I've already created a project, you can also create a one from here, right? So I'll just use an existing project. And the project that I picked to use is PickPads. I don't know. It is, yeah, so this is the project PickPads. So I pick that, and it will start the configuration process. So my application for Cloud Function, I'll just use JavaScript. Do you want to use ESLint? Yes. Do you want to install dependencies with npm now? I'll say no for this. And then it will go to the hosting setup. The hosting setup is coming up. So yeah, so the plan is to do that. The hosting part, the one that we are configuring right now, is the one that we are going to start with, the hosting part. So going back to this, it will ask us, what do you want to use as your public directory? So it means that once you build your React application, because we'll see a build process, which I'm going to talk about later. So where do you want the files to be placed? So we are going to just use the default public, and then configure a single page app. Yes, we want our application to run as a single page. Set out automatic build and deploy with GitHub. So you can actually configure this so that when you push your work to GitHub, it will be deployed automatically. So this would be a better choice to go with, but I'm not going to use that for now. So we'll just say no, do not do that. And then which Firebase emulator do you want? So emulators are basically a way to run this Firebase hosting, authentication, and the cloud function locally. So we would want to test locally, we would want to test hosting locally, we would want to test authentication locally, and functions locally, and also hosting as well. So because those are the four things that we want to use. Or app hosting, no. So we just need authentication emulator, function emulator, and hosting emulators. So which port do you want to use for authentication? We'll use that, the default one. For the functions, we'll use the default one. For hosting, we'll use the default one. Would you like to enable the emulator UI? Yes. Which port do you want? Just the default. It says leave empty for available port. Would you like to download the emulator now? Again, yes, we can say yes. And it will ask which provider would you like to enable. If you don't see provider here, go to the Firebase console to set it up. We want Google sign in. We also need, you can also use email and password. What display name would you like to use for your auth brand? So the display name, I will use Tada, right? Tada list, Tada. So what support email? The support email that I'll be using here is njmoas@gmail.com. Would you like to install agent skills? For now, no. And Firebase initialization complete. So once you initialize Firebase, a couple of files will be added, and one of them is the public, which has an index file that has a lot. It will also have the functions, so we'll get to this when we start to deploy the backend. And it also has a couple of files here: configuration, the application, which application we'll use. We also have this one which has other things like the source of the function, the code base, all this information. We also have the hosting configuration, where which public folder, but actually I would rather use a different public folder for this. So I'll use dist. Okay, I'll use this. So where does this dist folder come from? The dist folder will contain our build. So first thing that you need to do for your React application is to build it, right, before you deploy. So we'll do npm, or in my case, because I'm using pnpm, but your case you might be using npm. So I will just run build, right? So for your case you might do npm run build. For my case it's pnpm run build. So what does this particular command do? It converts the React application into a JavaScript application, right? As you can see, it generates a folder called dist, which is this folder, and inside the folder you have the assets, which are all your design files like css and all that. It also contains index.html, which is which connects to some JavaScript. So basically we are deploying HTML JS application, and that is actually the end product of React. Once you've done developing in React, you have to do a build which generates HTML and CSS, because HTML and CSS is what is compatible with the browser. It is what the browser understands. It doesn't understand React. It actually understands HTML, CSS. So after you've developed your React application, you have to build it so that it generates the HTML, CSS, which is now readable by the browser. So now if we do Firebase emulator, and let us start only hosting, we will be able to see our end product, the end product of our application, what is going to be deployed. And because we configured hosting to be 5000, we can access it using port 5000. So we'll come here and say localhost port 5000. So we should be able to see the deployed application, right? Or the build application, which is, we inspect this, we just see plain HTML and CSS. Like if I go to the header here, you'll be able to see the JavaScript and the CSS for this application. So this is what is going to be deployed. So finally, let's just do the deployment part. Once we have built, so lastly, the other thing that we need to do is to deploy. So we can do Firebase deploy only hosting. So when you run this Firebase deploy only hosting, Firebase is going to do its thing, and then it's going to generate for us. I'm messing up something here. I forgot to, because now I've overwritten an application that was there before. So if I open this, I've done a mistake because I've overwritten another application that was there, right? So but you can see it generates a URL. It generates a URL for your application. So this, like, I've messed up something. Because I've overwritten another application. I should have created a different, should have come here and created a different web application and call it, I'll call the application Tada list, or just Tada list. I'll just call it Tada list. Also set up Firebase hosting for this app. Yes, hosting can also be set up later. There is no cost to get, so I'll just use Tada list. Tada. It looks like Tada list is already taken, so I'll use Tada dash list. Tada list, and then register that app. And I might hide some of the configuration that we'll see here. So I'll hide some config, but anyway, we can always replace these configs, so no worries about that, as long as there is no private key. But yeah, that is not sensitive, even not that sensitive. Now this is the command that we ran for installing the tools, and then all this we have already done: Firebase login, Firebase init, we've configured hosting, we've done all that. So that is what I would have done, but right now I've replaced an application that was initially there. So how do we make sure that Tada works on this side? I'll just configure some targets. So I'll say Firebase hosting target. So that's the command for deploying it. So you don't have to do this for you. I'm doing this because I am hosting the application. I'm more than one application in one host. So let me see target. Okay, I think it's not what I wanted. Deploy targets here. Actually, this is what I'm looking for. Deploy target. I will look for Firebase target apply. Target name resource identifier. So type here is, so let's say I want type the relevant Firebase resource type. So for this one I'll say just hosting. The target name is going to be Tada lists, and the resource identifier says site ID for the hosting. So site ID here I will pick this one, Tada list. Okay, yeah. So it's just Tada lists. So that is the command that you will run, yeah, to avoid overwriting other application. But for you don't need to. So to deploy, I'll just say Firebase deploy hosting Tada. And then so hosting site target not. So we need to configure targets, which again you don't really need to do this for your case, because you might only be needing one application. So we need to create some target file, hosting target blog. I just need to copy this and include it in my host because already we have the target configured here. Tada. So we need to go to our JSON and include a target here and call it tada list. And then so we deploy to the new application that web application that we built inside of Firebase. So this will generate will give us the URL that we can access the deployed application. So the URL that we'll be using now is tadalist.webapp. Now this tadalist is now still using our local JSON server. So that means if we stop this, even though it's already deployed, it will not be able to access the list. So we'll be getting a network error because the JSON server is now not running. But in actual sense, because it's deployed, it needs to connect to also a deployed backend as well. So that is where now the second step comes in. We need to deploy JSON server. For us to deploy the backend, we will deploy it under what we call a cloud function, right? So again, this part, I will just provide a repository where you can just download this code and host it yourself. So we'll navigate to this folder called the function. So we'll cd to functions, and then inside of functions we will run npm, or in my case I'll be using npm install. So it's going to install the packages required, and these are the packages that we need: dependencies, Firebase admin, Firebase function, dev dependencies, these ones. So we will run that package. So we'll run this npm install that, and there are other dependencies that we might need to facilitate this. So I'll Google Google Express JSON server. I'll just Google that. Although it has some challenges, this Express JSON server, because I'm just gonna use this code as it is, but it has some challenges saving to this file. We'll see the challenges that we will encounter. So this is what we are going to be using. So we need to do install Express and JSON server. We also need to have the JSON server file. So that is what we're going to do. So I will do npm add express JSON server, and we will copy our database here. So we will include the database, so db.json, and inside db.json we will have the resources, which is tasks, and the tasks here will be empty to start with. We'll also have users, which will also be empty. We'll also have project, say, which also is going to be empty. So that becomes our database, and now we've installed those two. So that means we can come and just copy and paste our JSON, because this is not our main focus. We just need something that is working. So we'll go back here. There are a few things that we are going to retain. We will remove that. We need to retain, just delete some of these. We need to retain those. we need to retain this and actually make sure that we are just running a maximum of one instance, because it's not as big application. And we can copy and paste what we had on the other side, so we can just do that and add it at the end here, but rather after the require, so you can put that there. So I will not explain this code because just want you to know that we are basically deploying JSON server through something called Express and JSON server, and the data that we'll be accessing is db.json, and all this I will not explain for now, but now we will need to be calling that under API, and then finally can just export what we call here exports.tada list bucket, which is going to be on request, and on request we can just pass in the server. There are other things here that we might want to configure, like something we call cause to be true. We can also say invoker public. Again, I don't want to explain any of those. We can remove this. We are not going to be listening to that. And actually here, what we need to pass in is the app, not the server. So that being that, we can test this and see again if it's going to be working. So delete that. We can test this by running Firebase emulator start only functions. So let's see if our functions will be working. It has cannot find module JSON server requires so failed to load function. All right, so I think it's an issue with the package. So beta is not recommended, so we can just downgrade that to 0.17. npm add JSON server at 0.17. So that will be downgraded to that. So let's see if that will sort our problem. Type object is not supported. Use object or array of objects. Okay, we have another challenge. Failed to load function definition from self-Firebase error functions. Code base could not be initialized. So let's be more specific. What we need to run here is the list backend. Have some issues. Not version, that doesn't match the global version. Error is not supported. Use object or array object. This error is under router. Page to load function definition for source function code base could not be analyzed successfully. It may have syntax runtime error. So there's some syntax runtime error. So let's see, what are we missing? Set global on request, express json server, set global max1 app json server, create. We might want to use path. And we can use here, instead of this, let's say path.join dir. You can specify the string db.case. If that is the problem, but we can test and see if there's gonna be a solution or not. Clear the terminal, run this again. Same issue. Fail to load function, but database could not be. It may have some syntax error. So let's try to run yes lint and see npm run lint. See if it's going to give us where the error could be. Ignore build script, npm approved, pick blah blah blah, command failed with syntax. So let's run this as well to approve builds. Yes, it's a challenge sometimes to deploy. So do you want to approve? Yes. See, if I run linked, am I gonna get already up to date? Oops, something went wrong. Let's link that. Something to do with the version. Unsupported engine wanted, not 24 current. Right, so we can change here which node version do I have. 22. So I can change in the package and say why not use 22. So maybe that will take care of the warning, but will it take care of the error? Not yet. No, and could find no unassigned was unplug. Command failed. Debugging. Okay, so the other way we can test this is by trying to do this request rest.send testing, and then we can comment everything else that we copied from we can comment everything else that we copied from wherever we copied that from. The AI generated code. So this seems to be something to do with the Okay, so it looks like it's running, and we can access it using this URL. It's giving us testing. Let's go ahead and import Express. We'll debug this line by line. We need to figure out where the problem is. So we will not import JSON server. We're not creating that. We are not going to create anything JSON server. We just comment. We need Express app. We need that. We need that one. We don't need that one. We don't need. This one we don't need as well. Let's create another default route, app.get, and then we can do what we are doing over here inside of this. So it's a process to deploy a node backend. So this one we will add it here instead, and we can see if that is gonna give us what we're looking for. So we are just ignoring anything to do with JSON server to try and figure out where the problem could be. So I'll just stop this and run it afresh to see if it's gonna give us the outcome that we are looking for. And we don't have any errors so far. So if we test those URLs again, if we check, if I refresh this, I'll be able to see testing. Let's also test this other custom API custom endpoint. You can test that as well and see. Yeah, so we're also having the message that we are looking for here, custom. So it means that JSON server has an issue. As I said, JSON server is a problem to deploy. It's just meant for development or simple applications. So again, let's just continue debugging line by line. So we will enable the server. Let's see up to this point. Do we have, is it still running? Will it be able to run up to that point? So let me just clear the terminal, wait for the output. Yeah, so that is where the problem is. So let us inspect the output of path.join. So we can comment that line and this line. Do a console.log that. Yeah, so this is the outcome. So it's pointing to the right file. So that seems okay. So we can again. Is it at the point where we are initializing? So the initialization of the router, that is where the problem is. The foreign key suffix, either a path to JSON file or the object in memory will then be wrapped by. So could we be missing out on the router bit? Type of project string is not supported. use object or arrays of objects as it costs. Oh yeah, I see. So this is where the problem is. It needs to be an array. So control C, then we run these, and we should be good to go on that front. Huh? Yeah, so now we don't have any errors. So the issue was our database files. So we can now comment the other lines. So we can uncomment these ones. So API points to that. And yeah, with that one, you can leave it as it is. So let's save and see if we are gonna get the output we're looking for. So now, so let's try to access the routes. So we can try to access API/tasks. So it should give us an empty list. So that means we can use this URL. We can point our application to this URL. So we go to our React application in the .env. We change this URL to point to the Firebase Cloud Function. So if we again try to run our React application from here, npm run dev at port 5433. So not the live one, but now the local one. This one, not even that one, but rather this. So we try to do something here. It doesn't give us anything, but if we can add a task 1, it should be able to add the task. So we have the task here, the newly added task, and that was added by now our Cloud Function json-server. As you can see, task was called. You can also try to update a task, and we should be able to see it updating, right? Although it's refreshing, it shouldn't be refreshing as it is, so we should try to prevent default here and submit it. Oh, the reason why that is doing that is because there's some file changing. So now we have established that is working, so we can deploy this backend. So the second step here, we managed to set up a backend using Cloud Function. We managed to set up a backend using Cloud Function, the JSON server. Now to deploy that backend and now start using it for our application. So we'll go to again to the Cloud Function, we stop it, and then we do Firebase deploy only functions, and the function we are going to deploy is the dar list bucket. So deploying a Cloud Function takes a bit of time, but eventually we will get it deployed. So we have had to do a few debugging here and there. Could not find, let me see, everything here seems okay. So let's go back here and look at what is happening. So let's just read the function deployment command terminated with none 0. exit. So why is that the case? So we'll look at how something went wrong. So there's something to do with the pre-deploy command. We'll just disable this and just let it deploy. So let's see. Okay, this will still throw the error, but what I want to look at here is the deployment. We give it a few minutes because deploying a cloud function might take some time, so we'll just give it a few minutes. And so now once it's deployed, it's going to give us a URL that we can use for our live server, so it's for our live application. So again, we're going to update the env with the deployed application. So we'll just comment here, again use void base URL http, and we are going to give it the new URL, backend URL that Firebase is going to give us to use. So I will fast forward this part. Yeah, so actually the video is taking even more than I'm now. So we'll do some cutting. So here it tells us the location of our backend is going to be US Central. How many days do you want to keep container image before they are deleted? 5 days. And just keep them for build fail with status failure. The message, this project is using PNPM, but you have not included. Okay, so before we try again, it's always good to read the errors. So it says that we need to include we need to run this to include functions framework. So let's just run that. So again, for you might not need to do that because you probably are using npm. So let us deploy last time. So again, this is what we want to achieve. We have already achieved the first, deploying a React application to Firebase Hosting. We have also managed to set up a json-server backend, and now we are in the process of deploying that backend. So that is what is happening. All right, so the deployment is complete and it has given us a URL that we can use for our backend. So if I access this URL, it gives me access to the backend, right? It's written there, testing. So if we go to like API tasks, we should be able to see the current task. So we're gonna use that as our we're gonna use that as our backend. So we'll go to this and configure this to be our backend. We'll set up that. So that means if I go to our React application and try to access it locally, it accesses the tasks that are in the background. So we can check the network here, and if we inspect this network, we should be able to see that it points to the live server. So the problem now comes in when I want to add an item. So it's for JSON server, it works very well locally, but when you deploy it and you try to add something or to write to the database, you will be faced by an error, right? So it will give you a server error. And if you try to inspect from the server, because you can be able to come here and look at maybe cloud functions, can be able to expand this and look at so I'm looking for functions, so I can be able to debug this cloud function and see what the issue is. So this is the function, and we can monitor it using the logs, so to identify why we are getting this error when you try to post, because it gives us this error here. Actually, we can look at this from even a network perspective and look at the response. So the response here is basically we have an internal server error, stream is not readable. So that means it's not be able, when you deploy it, JSON server is not able to read our JSON db.json our db.json file. So we need to find a workaround around that. So again, to monitor that from the backend, you can be able to look at the logs and you can be able to see the error that we are facing. So how do we ensure that JSON server is able to read the JSON? So that way, we need to ask Google, the person who gave us the code, and tell it that we are facing this error. So you can actually post the error that you are facing. You can tell it that is the error that you are getting, and it might give us a workaround. So you can say, so the workaround that checks the middleware order. I've tried all those things by the way. So handle multi-part form data and ensure body parser. So let's see if this is going to be the solution. Avoid manual stream reading. So if you have a custom middleware that logs or inspects data, ensure it is not doing that. So let's see if this is going to fix our error. So we are saying my custom logger express JSON. Somehow I doubt that is the issue. Because we are not using a logger anywhere. So I know what the issue is, so I'll tell it. That is not the issue. The issue is JSON server is not able to write to the JSON. That's actually what the issue is. Understood. If JSON server is failing to write internal server error, occurs because JSON server crashes internally, right? So when JSON server crashes during write attempt, its underlying body parser layer leaves the network stream. So fix directory parsing. So let's see if JSON server is running in an environment without write permission, like a restricted root. So let us tell it where the JSON server is running from. So you can tell it like JSON server and express are running in Firebase cloud function. So let's narrow down our option. So the root cause of this failure is that Firebase cloud function runs on the read-only file system. When you express application details as cloud function calls JSON server to execute writes and operation posts attempts to rewrite your local so file instead of deploying a directory, the serverless separating system blocking the system file. So that is the issue. So the short-term fix, use the TMP directory. So Google Cloud Function blocks writes to the application bundle directory, but they provide a mutable temporary in-memory directory called a temp. You can copy your db.json file into that at runtime when the function boots up, and then instruct json-server to read and write from the temporary location. So that now this can also be an issue, because if this particular cloud function stops, it will delete the files that are in the temp file. So this is just a temporary solution, but just note that when your application is not being used, in 5 days it will be stopped, and that will cause loss of data, right? Because you're saving that in the temp directory, right? So we can maybe try and use this particular fix and specify where we want our file to be, which will make us copy that to that. And this is the critical drawback: cloud functions are stateless and ephemeral. The temp directory is unique to each isolated server container instance. Any data your users write will vanish whenever the cloud function scales down or restarts. So that is a drawback. Or should we use the right production fix migration to Cloud Firestore? So json-server is designed exclusively for local mock server and create and stateful environment. For a cloud function architecture, you should swap out json-server entirely and use a Firebase native database, which we don't want to do at the moment. Alternatively, look for a fix. Use the Firebase emulator suite. Now let's use this temp for now, because so we'll do a copy of the file on boot. So we will just add that immediately here. No, let's add it here. We copy the file. So fs exists writable db path, copy local db path writable db. So I think we'll need to replace writable db, copy this at all. So if exists writable db path, fs copy. So writable db path is going to be writable db path will be equals to path dot join temp tmp, and then we copy from local to, so local db path is going to be local db path is going to be path dot join that's for the error db.json. Writable. So again, we need to add here db.json. So the writable and the local. So if it does not exist, we copy that, and then we use the writable. So we use writable here. So can we test this locally first before we deploy? Firebase emulator start only functions the list working. the dullest backend. Dullest backend. Alrighty. So what does it say? FS. Oh, we need to import FS. We need FS. So const FS equals to require FS. Okay, Control C. Run it fresh. So we test this locally tuangalie kama inafanya. No errors. Can we change this and test if our application is going to be getting what we want. So pending, I'm seeing a scenario where it's going to throw an error. It's working. So locally it's working. So let's deploy and see. Will we be able to write to that JSON file? So we deploy the cloud function again. As usual, it takes a couple of minutes to deploy cloud function, so we give it. So the next step, if the deployment works as we expect, we will do another section about adding authentication, because right now you'll see that the application is publicly available. Anyone can post to this, but we want such a way that before you get to this page, you need to sign up, log in, so that you can track your own tasks. Right now, you can task everyone's task. You can track everyone, but you want to make sure that only tasks that belong to specific users to use specifically, or if you're collaborating, you can just add tasks to collaborators. So let's give this time. So the deployment is done with our fix, so we can test whether it is working. So we are using the live one, the live wire. So we are able to get, can we be able to add new task? Testing. Add the new task. No, we are still facing the same error. String is not readable. What are we trying to read? I think we can check that from the logs. What string is not readable? So this has been an issue for a while. Let's go back and look at I'll tell it I want to go with option 2, but I can't option 1. Use option 1, but it seems Firebase Cloud. What are we looking for? Application bundle provides mutable temporary directory located at temp. So the in-memory directory is not found. It seems like the in-memory directory tmp is not found. In memory, let's see if we configured that correctly. This was supposed to be path.join tmp. So what does it say? So the tmp directory that definitely exists on the Firebase Cloud Function server, but manually writing hard-coded string like fails due to differences between your local operation system environment and that. So to fix this, use the node native OS tmp directory method. This resolves the conflict. So we're being told to use this. So we'll use that. Again, I don't like the process of deploying cloud function because it takes a lot of time. So we'll we need to use const os equals to require os, or first of all, let's test this locally. Always test locally before deploying. Always test locally before deploying. Do we have any errors? No errors, so I think we're good to go. We are good to go. Okay, let's give it a couple of minutes to deploy. Yeah. So that means that every time you deploy, you'll also be deleting the data. So let's see. Right. We'll go back here to ensure that we have the correct. And then we refresh. And then we try to add a new task. And we are testing it. Click on add. Again, JSON server usually has these errors. So this means that there is no solution to this. Yeah, so I think the last solution here is just to bypass JSON server, because JSON server is not meant for a production environment. So I'll just tell this guy to the problem persists. Can we just bypass JSON server but still use ap.json for storing the data? Yes, we can bypass JSON server entirely and handle the file update directly with Node. And I will just keep the reading and go straight to Express. Use Express, initialize, and then so basically we are just removing everything that so there's also the read data, post data a lot. We're basically just passing reading when you're posting, when you are getting, we are just reading from the file, then passing that data, and then returning that. When we are posting, again we are reading, passing, it's not, we create and then we add a new one. So that's basically it. Let's get this is post. Probably we need a patch. So we will bypass our JSON server because it's not meant for production anyway. To type bypass. I need none of ya. So we need to replace that with this. I'm just gonna, instead of commenting, just remove this to ID, not helping us. So if it's not helping us, we just don't even comment. So here we need app.get. If you get anything to do with API, you can actually use what we call app.use and request okay. API resource. Let me see if we can be able to pull this together. I hate repeating myself. Request response. So let's try and see. Getting express dynamic routes. Yes, dynamic routes apply in very many places. So what I want to get is this dynamic route. So how do we get a dynamic? Get category request params. So I want to get here const resource. Because this is what I'm interested in. Resource, which is equals to request params, and now we can utilize what we had over here. Try all that. There is what we call initialize DB, which is not happening. So initialize DB. So we are initializing the database in every request. Pressing that. Initialize DB target path. This is writable path. Local path. Copy local path writable. So we are initializing that at every given point. We read the file. Target path. Right. So we are using not this but rather resource and then we are returning that. With an error, we return that. If there is data, we return the data. I would need to do a similar for a single item. So we can add another part here like ID, and we can extract ID as well. So when we return it, we can return empty. We don't get, but if we can do a find, row.id plus equals to ID. So you can also search for a single item, and we can also handle the post and the patch. So just copy and paste this again, just creating an API server. So post resource, don't need that. Can we read? Let's look at the post. So the post, what does the post do? Post does that. I don't know. Post does. This is what post does. It creates and does all that magic. So for post, we are doing more than that. So data, resource, and resource. So again, I have to keep counter checking if I'm doing the right thing for you. I have to keep counter checking you, so I get to see that is what we are looking for post. We are also checking if the resource does not exist. We create it. When we write a new resource, here we are going to use something like create that random UUID, because we wanna need crypto. Could you crypto equals to require right, cost.body, then we return, push the resource, and return the data in post. So okay, we write, and then we'll do the same for patching. Patching. We'll also do a patch. And whenever we are doing a patch, we normally have an ID to patch. An ID to patch. So if we are patching, we will again get the data, and then we will search. So resource equal empty. Then instead of creating a new, okay, we will just do data resource. It's just equals to data resource. Let's just find index cost. Index of the of row is equals to data resource dot find index row dot id equals to id. Then we can check if index of row is greater than or equals to 0. We do data.resource equals to the new update. So at index of row is equals to whatever that is, whatever we get plus whatever we get from this side. So we need to do a double patch. So of course, if we do not get, if this does not apply, so we just throw the error id does not exist. ID does not exist. And so we are looking for that, whichever that has an ID. We check if it's greater than 0, we replace it, and then we don't push, we just write status blah 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 new post in Evo, and then so that is our patch. And again we can now do the delete. Again, delete takes in API resource ID back request response. Right, well, just again we repeat the whole process. Try blah blah blah. Of course, Turkey. There's a lot of repetition, but a quick fix. A quick fix. So we'll just say here resource.data equals to field. And that reminds me, you are not destructuring. So we need to destructure these things. We need to destructure that. So we need to destructure this here. So let's test this out. Tuone kama itakuwa na maendeleo yoyote. Any errors? No errors. Okay, let's see. I refresh this. Am I gonna get what I'm looking for? Res is not defined. Line number 43. Go to line number 43. Okay. Maybe I should change this to res and res. Just replace that to request I can also look for request and replace it with replace everywhere. Does that solve our problem? Let's see. Trust. We can refresh here. Okay, so failed to request database details target is not defined. Target path is not defined. So we go back and change target path. Copy. I can choose that find target path. So when you know a target path, replace it with the writable. Okay. Replace that with the writable path. And we can try and check it is working. Sorry, having good on that. Hatuja deploy bado tujue kama it's going to work on. So yeah, so we are able to get that. Let's try to add something using our local unmute that and mute that. So let's try that with our local application. Are we getting the data? We are. And new task testing locally. Task locally. Let's confirm. Let's confirm it is if it has persisted. It has persisted. So let's deploy these. Let's try to update something like let's call this task. Internal server error for updates. So where is the internal server error occurring from? Internal server error details. The new post is not defined. New post is not defined. That is happening pale kwa update kwa patch. Tuangalie patch yetu inasema nini. Yeah, so instead of that we should return what we are patching. So we can say let updated equals to this. But only if tumepata hiyo. So you can still say let that so that becomes our updated post. Updated post equals to that. And now instead of using new post, we use updated post. Somehow delete naona nikasu kuifanya venye inafaa. Yeah. So you can just say message Okay. And I think that is it. So let's try to update. Yes, I think we are able to update now. It's not updating, it's posting, it's adding. So patch. I go refresh to one. I think it's because of the ID. Let's try to update the last one up. We can change the due date to, let's say, casual kuto. To updated. Okay. How about deleting it to delete here? Delete, I might delete. Delete it window thing. Just deleted a lot of things. Looks like our delete is not deleting. Deleting. Yeah. Route is not happening. Try getting a message. Deleted. But if I refresh, I'm getting the thing that I deleted. Let's say new task. I could do another free task. Refresh the persistent. Yes. Can I delete new? I'm able to delete new. Can I refresh and get real? No, the delete is out. Meaning that we need to change this to not equals. Not equals. Okay, not equals. Create task building another task described here. Refresh, delete new task, refresh. Good. Now let's deploy this.
Let us deploy and see it's working locally. So let me test.
We give it a few minutes to deploy. And all right, deployment done. We test. We check. We do that so that our React application will be pointing to that database. So let us delete. Let's start by deleting. It deleted. Hallelujah. So let's try to add something new. Task described as the working task. and we can add a due date for this tomorrow. The due date, add, and voila, it's adding. Refresh. Is it persisting? We can check PA. Is it posting in the right database? It's posting in the right database. Can we add another one? Another task described here, and we can add and refresh. So now we have a working backend. We have a working backend. Now finally we need to create to add authentication.